When James came home that evening, his face was clouded with worry. As he broke the news of his demotion, I nearly dropped my cup of tea in shock. We had braced ourselves for the impact of his company's downturn and the upcoming restructuring, but I never imagined it would hit us so personally. As his wife, I knew my support was more critical than ever. "It's just bad luck," I reassured him, forcing a weak smile to lighten the mood. "Times are tough, but I'm still working, so we'll be okay." I'm Anna, 46 years old, working full-time in a back-office job. I live with James, for years my senior, our high school sophomore daughter, Stephanie, and my 70-year-old mother-in-law, Linda. While Linda and I occasionally clash, we rarely interact since I spend most of my time at work. I've learned to let her behavior slide. To Stephanie, I explained gently, "Your dad's upset about his job, but let's try to keep things normal for him." But things didn't stay normal. James began opening up about his frustrations more often, venting his anger at those he trusted most, including me. The next day, while cleaning the hallway on my day off, James walked by and made a cutting remark. "You've put on some weight since we got married, haven't you?" he said, his tone sharp. I paused, trying to stay calm. "Well, I am 46, and it's normal to gain weight around menopause," I replied, knowing my recent health checkup confirmed I was within a healthy range. But his next words cut deeper. "Forget the health checkup, you look unsightly." "It's embarrassing," he snapped, retreating to his room before I could respond. I stood there, stunned, my side instinctively pinched between my fingers. Yes, there was a slight bulge around my waist, but his words felt like a piercing arrow. I realized I was still holding the window squeegee when it slipped from my grasp, clattering loudly on the floor. From that moment, James grew increasingly distant and harsh. To make matters worse, Linda, who had overheard the argument, decided it was her place to intervene, escalating the tension in the house. One day, while carrying a laundry basket up the stairs, I found her waiting at the top, blocking my way. She sighed dramatically. "Oh, how dreadful. If only you weren't so overweight. I wouldn't have to wait here, stuck behind you." At dinner that evening, as I served chicken tenders, she made another pointed comment. "Isn't this the kind of food adding to your weight gain?" Before I could respond, she snatched my plate away, insisting only the non-overweight family members should eat. I reminded myself that my gynecologist had reassured me my weight gain was normal for my age. But Linda, slender as a dried-up tree, was relentless with her taunts. What hurt the most, though, was the shift in James's attitude. He stopped talking to me altogether, no gratitude, no compliments, not even during meals I had carefully prepared. He ate in silence and left the table without a word. Even in shared spaces like the bathroom or bedroom, he ignored me, turning his back to me at night and burying himself in his smartphone. One night, summoning my courage, I softly asked, "Is there a reason you're ignoring me?" His response was chilling. "Not really. I just prefer not to engage much at home," he said indifferently. Then, more harshly, he added, "I don't want to be associated with someone this overweight. If you care about me, you'll lose some weight." His words were disheartening, despite my daily 1.5-mile walks and efforts to manage my weight. His coldness created an unbridgeable gap between us. It felt as though nothing I did mattered. "If you're not seeing results, you might as well not try," he snapped one evening. After that, he completely shut me out, refusing to acknowledge my presence. Meanwhile, Linda continued her relentless jabs. Whenever meat, fruit, or rice appeared on the table, she'd scrutinize my choices. "Are you supposed to eat that? Do you know what you're doing to yourself?" I hoped things would improve, but the strain only deepened. Eventually, I limited myself to salads and boiled vegetables, while James sat across from me, silently pushing his food around. His chopsticks moved mechanically, his gaze distant. Our home grew cold, and our marriage felt like it was quietly unraveling. One evening, as I packed a few belongings, I wondered if it was time to leave. If this was how James chose to treat me, maybe walking away was the only way to reclaim my dignity. When I confided in my daughter Stephanie, she immediately offered unwavering support. "I understand, Mom," she said, her voice brimming with empathy. "It's hard to watch Dad and Grandma constantly pick on you. I'll go with you. We can live with Grandma and Grandpa, and I can still finish high school there." Her words were a lifeline, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps leaving wasn't as impossible as it seemed. Just as I began to steel myself for what I thought might be the end, James approached me with an unexpected smile. "Tomorrow's the first day of my demotion," he said, trying for a light-hearted tone. "Let's have a drink tonight, just this once. Mimosas for dinner?" It was the first time he had spoken to me directly since breaking the news of his demotion. The gesture seemed oddly out of place after all the tension and hurtful words. When he set the drinks on the table, I couldn't shake the unease creeping over me. His behavior felt forced, as if he were acting out some strange performance of normalcy. As he turned to grab the TV remote, I sniffed my drink discreetly. The faint, sharp tang of vinegar tickled my nose, a scent I recognized instantly from cooking. A wave of anger surged through me. Did he really think I wouldn't notice? How could he be so cruel? I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. "This is it," I thought. "No more of this." "James," I said calmly, masking the fury simmering beneath my words, "could you grab the Bauer cheese from the fridge? It'll go perfectly with dinner." He nodded, oblivious to my growing resolve, and walked to the kitchen. Seizing the moment, I swapped my glass with the untouched one meant for Linda. When James returned with the cheese, I smiled brightly and called out, "Dinner's ready." Soon, Stephanie and Linda joined us at the table. I served the food and raised my glass. "Let's dig in," Stephanie chimed in cheerfully, trying to lighten the mood. As we began eating, I caught James sneaking glances at me, his expression tense. I took a deliberate sip of the drink, locking eyes with him. "It's quite good," I said pointedly. James muttered something under his breath, but I ignored him, turning my attention to my salad. Suddenly, Linda let out a sharp gasp, followed by a dramatic cough. Red liquid sprayed across her plate as she spat it out in horror. "What on earth is this?" she screeched, clutching her throat. "Grandma, are you okay?" Stephanie asked, rushing to her side, her face etched with concern. Linda's face contorted in rage as she glared at me. "What did you put in my drink?" she shrieked, trying to lunge toward me. Calmly, I pushed her hand aside. "It wasn't me," I said coolly, gesturing toward James. "He made the drinks." The room fell silent as Linda turned her furious gaze on her son. James froze, his face pale and trembling. "You thought you could sneak something into my drink, didn't you?" I said softly, leaning forward. I noticed the difference, even if it was slight. "You didn't think I'd catch on?" The tension at the table was suffocating, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Stephanie's worried gaze darted between us as Linda seethed, her lips still stained with the offending drink. For once, the weight of the moment was entirely on James, and I wasn't about to let him off the hook. As Linda's eyes narrowed at James, who was now avoiding eye contact, the tension in the room became suffocating. His attempt at deception had unraveled, shifting the dynamics of the already strained evening. The fiery kick of the hot sauce, George's lime-infused blend I had discovered at a food fair, was unmistakable. Its heat was tempered by a subtle citrus note, far more palatable than the infamous death sauce. I recognized it instantly. "You added that sauce, didn't you?" I asked firmly, naming the exact brand. I knew its flavor well from our shared cooking experiments. Linda likely hadn't noticed, either distracted by the mimosa's aroma or mistaking the lime for part of the drink. But I knew. His action wasn't just a prank, it was malicious. Stephanie's voice broke the silence, disbelief written all over her face. "Wait. Dad did that?" Cornered, James muttered a reluctant confession. I meant it for Anna," he admitted, his voice tinged with desperation. "She was supposed to get it, not Linda. You must have swapped the glasses." I felt a surge of anger. Why would you even think such a stunt was acceptable? I demanded. James squirmed under the pressure. "You've been putting on weight," he stammered. "Spicy food boosts metabolism. I thought I'd help." I scoffed, disgusted by his pathetic excuse. "Help? By sneaking hot sauce into my drink? That's not helpful. It's cruel. You can't disguise pettiness as concern." Under my cold glare, James mumbled another excuse, this time offering to switch glasses. "Here, have a taste. It's for you, after all." I stood, grabbing the fiery concoction intended for Linda, and placed it firmly in front of him. "If it's so good for me, you drink it. You've ignored me for so long, treated me like I'm invisible, and now you expect me to trust something you just made? Taste it yourself." The room fell silent, the weight of my challenge hanging in the air. James hesitated, stepping back, but before he could retreat further, Stephanie's voice cut through the tension. "Dad," she began, her tone firm despite the emotion in her words, "taking out your frustration on Mom with a childish prank? That's just wrong. She supports you the most when work gets tough, and you treat her like this? It's immature and unbearable to watch." Her unwavering gaze pinned him in place. "Mom wakes up early, walks to work, and packs her own lunches. She's trying. Is it really fair to say she's not making an effort?" Then she turned to Linda. "And you, going along with this? Taking away her food, like the chicken tenders incident? It's like high school drama. It's embarrassing." Linda fumbled for an excuse. "I just want her to feel good about herself," she said, her voice defensive. "She's gained weight, and I'm concerned. It's for her own good." Stephanie didn't back down. "Mom hasn't had any health issues at her checkups. Taking away her food is just plain mean. That's not concern. It's cruelty." Her words silenced Linda, and she turned back to James. "Mom stays active and sees her doctor regularly, yet you brush her aside because she's gained a bit of weight. Why? Your indifference creates so much tension in this house. Don't you see it?" Her voice cracked slightly, but her determination didn't waver. "Even Aunt Kayla from those cookie ads has a little extra weight, and she's the happiest person I know. Ever heard of happy weight? If Mom becomes a lovely grandmother like Aunt Kayla, wouldn't that be wonderful? That's my dream. Please don't ruin it for me." Stephanie's words warmed my heart, her love and loyalty shining through. The room was still, but for the first time in a long while, it felt like the air had shifted, like a ray of light piercing through a storm. It was a painful sight to watch my daughter reprimand her father, but her words struck a chord deep within me. That's part of my dream. So please let it go. Be happy and fulfill my dream, she said, her voice soft yet resolute. Her plea filled me with warmth, melting away the frustration over the weight shaming and the drink incident until they seemed almost trivial. Tears welled in my eyes, blurring my vision. "You're right," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Come on, Mom," Stephanie urged gently, patting my back. "Let's go." I nodded, wiping my eyes, ready to release something I had been holding onto for far too long. What is this?" Mark asked, startled, as I placed the papers before him. "After months of being ignored, I've made up my mind," I said, my voice steady as I handed him the divorce papers. My name, bold and decisive, stared back at him from the page. "I've packed my bags. It's time for us to go our separate ways." Mark's voice cracked with panic. "I just wanted you to lose some weight. If you'd slimmed down like I asked, I'd have been happy," he admitted, his words trembling with desperation. "But since you didn't, I thought I'd torment you a little to push you." Stephanie's voice cut through the air, sharp as a blade. "Those who only realize their mistakes when it's too late are the truly immature ones." Linda, now subdued, added softly, "Living without your granddaughter isn't a joke." Without missing a beat, Stephanie shot back, "I don't want to live with people who act like they're in middle school." James, finally realizing the gravity of the situation, hesitated. Then, in a bid to salvage some dignity, he muttered, "Okay, fine, I'll taste it." Picking up the glass meant for Linda, he gulped it down in one swift motion. Almost immediately, he choked, his lips turning a bright, fiery red. "See? I took responsibility," he managed to say, his voice hoarse and strained. Stephanie, ever quick on her feet, snapped a picture of both James and Linda, their lips swollen and lobster red. "You two look ridiculous," she laughed. Then, turning to me, she said firmly, "Mom, let's go." "I'll follow her lead," I said. Standing together, we left the dinner table behind, now splattered with fiery sauce and wine cocktails. Mark and Linda, both red-faced and humiliated, were left in the chaos they'd created. We headed straight to my parents' house, where I explained everything. Furious, my parents decided to confront James and Linda. The divorce went through swiftly, and as the years passed, Mark's career faltered. His unprofessional behavior led to a demotion, while Linda found herself stuck, sharing a house with a bitter man. A few years later, Linda called me, her voice tinged with regret. "Things wouldn't be so dull if you and Stephanie were here," she said wistfully, reflecting on all the time that had passed. "Please, come back. I'll stop ignoring you." But I had no intention of returning. "Enjoy yourself while you can," my mother teased, smiling. "Once you have grandchildren, you'll have plenty of physical work to keep you busy." Today, as I walked to work, I breathed in the crisp morning air, savoring the freedom of my new life. My routine was a symbol of my fresh start. As I passed by, my boss pulled up alongside me. "Need a ride?" he asked, his friendly grin familiar. "No, thanks," I said, waving him off. "I'm sticking to my routine." "Come on, Anna, get in," he insisted, his tone lighthearted. But today, things were different. "I've found someone new," I said proudly, meeting his gaze. "Someone who respects me, who understands what it's like to start over." He smiled knowingly. "Being punctual is important, though," he teased. "I've never been late," I protested, puffing my cheeks in mock indignation. He chuckled, poking my cheek playfully. "Then how about using the time you save writing with me for a little extra conversation?" I laughed, the easy connection between us warming my heart. "Always the conversationalist," I teased back, feeling lighter than I had in years.